What's up, you guys? Day 12 of 100 daily videos here on YouTube. I love it. Over one-tenth of a way now. I just feel like I've accomplished a huge goal. Um, if you don't know me, my name is Brianna. I am first and foremost a licensed clinical psychotherapist for over 20 years. But beyond that, I am a multifaceted mentor, both coaching and mentoring 6 and 7 figure CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business owners to bring more alignment to the success in their professional life to where they desire their personal life to be as just as successful. I'm also a stylist, an author, and a speaker, and I am here to talk about a really potent and powerful part of my story that I am witnessing a lot of women currently walking through and have seen a lot of my friends go through, which is starting over in your 30s and 40s and how not to feel like a failure in this process. Now, um, when I got divorced in 2017 and moved from Ventura, Southern California to Greenville, South Carolina, the first part of this process of packing up my things, leaving this marriage, leaving everything familiar was so exciting to me. And I remember laying in bed the day before. My car was already packed up to go. There was enough room in there for my 2 dogs, and for me to pick up my friend along the way. And I felt like I was going on the biggest adventure of my life. And while I was laying in bed, um, I remember writing this post and sharing with the world this odd juxtaposition between grief and excitement for what's new. The next day, I woke up and I guess I had missed getting some mail that my friend that I was living with had left me. And I go to open up this letter from the Board of Behavioral Science in South Carolina. California had already told me, the board had said, like, don't worry about it, like, you're going to get approved. We're one of the strictest states in the US. And I open up this letter and it says, you have been denied reciprocity for your license. And all of that excitement that I had dropped. And I immediately went into, what am I going to do for work? I mean, thank God for money that I had from my divorce settlement. But I was not prepared for that. I already had everything set up to start working. And so I allowed myself to be present through my trip. But when I got home, when I got, to my new home in Greenville, South Carolina, I found myself in this place of like, how do I do this? Now, I kicked myself because I maybe could have been a catalyst to starting remote online therapy way before online therapy was a thing because of COVID. But I didn't. And so I saw a few clients online for a while and was like, this is not sustainable. I am not going to be able to make a living off of doing this. And because in my very logical, one track way of thinking through things, it was like I went to school to be a therapist. I've been a therapist for already, like at that point, 15 years. And so this is what I do. And I I I panicked, right? I panicked. And so I started to get creative and I thought, okay, well, if my neighbor across the street, this isn't true, but like I'm just generalizing. If my neighbor across the street can call themselves a coach because of their life experience, surely I can become a mindset coach or something based on all of this therapeutic experience I have. And so I started to share my story post divorce. But again, when I talk about how God will challenge your integrity before you get the blessing, a lot of things I was talking about, I actually wasn't really in integrity with, because while, yes, I was um, overcoming this big change and starting over in a new way, I was also suffering in a lot of my own self doubt, and a lot of my own pride, and a lot of my own lack of awareness around patterns of behavior that I had had up until that point. And so I had to do something to get out of this rut. So I went back to bartending and serving at 36 years old. And there was a part of me that was like in go mode. I need to make money. I need to be in front of people. I have to do something. And then there was another part of me that was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, I've been a therapist my whole life. I served in college, and I know that like the service industry is a career for some people, but it wasn't where I was going in life. It wasn't where I saw myself going. And so um, I had to be okay with becoming humbled by my loss and by my experience. And so I want to encourage you as you are transitioning through a potential time in your life in your 30s and 40s where you are going through a significant change, that humility does not equal failure. It actually is a very strategic part of your growth and a strategic part of your momentum to move you forward as you go through this process of change. Um, it's very easy to go back to something familiar. It's very easy to go to these things that are safe. I unfortunately didn't even have that choice. And so I had to let go of what I thought things would look like and who I thought I was at that time as a therapist and, as a wife. Now I'm an ex-wife and all that stuff. Like, starting over confronts your ego, and it makes you look at those parts of yourself in the mirror, and it has you either say, I'm going to suffer in who I think I've always been, or I'm going to step into a new calling. That's a really wild place to be, especially when you don't ask for the loss or ask for the change, right? So now you're having to accept something that you had no control over being a part of. And so I, was in this place where it's like, I shouldn't have to be doing this. I'm at this point, I'm 36 years old. Like, I should be established by now. I was married. Now I'm not. I feel more unestablished than I was like a year and a half ago. And so I had to work through humbly, like releasing, falling, sacrificing, surrendering this idea of familiarity, because familiarity is not failure. Familiarity is not um, losing the battle because it looks different, but you're trying to do something similar. Familiarity is a way that I could say, okay, what are the things that I know I need to make it through this place? Well, I'm good at talking to people. I'm good. I've done serving before. I'm familiar with the industry. I knew that I would do well. I'm a people person, so that stability is sacred for somebody like me who oftentimes really values the idea of safety. And so creating security in a way as humbling as it was, allowed me to feel more secure through this transition that I was making. And that provision allowed me opportunity because I was humble enough to step into it. And that is something that I oftentimes see as one of the biggest challenges when it comes to women that are dealing with a big transition in their 30s and 40s, is that we expect our continued to provision to look like it's always been. And what happened, because I was humble enough to say, all right, if therapy's not working, because I could not get licensed in South Carolina. Y'all, I appealed twice. I even hired a lawyer. They wanted me to go back to school to make up like 4 units out of 6 different classes that were like 3 credits each. So I would have had to take a full semester class that was 3 credits or 4 credits just to get 1 credit. I was like, that's crazy. I might as well go back and get my PhD. And so I knew that this was me being called into a higher level of work besides just focusing on working with people in California. And so what happened while I was bartending? Well, because I started meeting people and telling them what I actually do and what my purpose in life is, I started to get referrals for coaching clients. And I built my coaching business in South Carolina because of allowing my pride to sit over in the corner and humbly step into a place that, whether you think, I don't know, it's not, I never felt like it was beneath me. It's just like, that wasn't the path that I saw myself going. But by not seeing myself going down that path, and not doing it, I would have missed out on this coaching business starting the way that I did. And so I quickly became a name in this city for my mindset coaching, for the way that I worked, for the way that I helped people get unstuck, start businesses, deepen relationships, heal, anxieties and struggles within their personal life and professional life. And so sometimes God, I want to remind you, sometimes God will put you in something stable, even if it's not what you thought it would look like, to protect your mental and emotional well-being. And it allows you the capacity to develop what's next. And in that, there is power. And in that, there is growth. And in that, how could you fail? Like, there's no way and no opportunity for failure in that, because you are postured in a position to always grow, receive, and experience whatever provision is meant for you. So I really encourage you, if you are in this season, to really allow God to humble you and surrender your idea of what things have to look like or how they should be, and be open to maybe going into rooms that either A, you might think you're better than, or B, that you never thought you would be in, because those are the same rooms that might actually evolve you and then open more doors for you to step into that next phase of your life. The second thing that I want to remind you when it comes to you not being a failure as somebody in their 30s or 40s who is experiencing big change or loss is that creativity is born in these restricted environments. And so when you feel like you're having to let go of a lot, is the most opportune time to get creative and think outside the box. We forget how powerful looking outside of what we know is, because the outside of that ring is actually opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And so as I, started to bartend and serve, and I started to get these referrals from people, I actually got into more other doors. I was asked to go and I took catering jobs at this one place, and then I met these like high level CEOs from BMW, and that developed relationships. I connected with so many business owners in the area that then connected me to people that they knew. And here's what starts to happen as you build relationships is you start to have more open conversations and open opportunities that allow you to start playing with the idea of things looking differently. And so I had instant visibility in a new way. I had a new title. And within that, I started to have this new story about who I was. And so was bartending just bartending? No, it was sketching new ideas for me. I would use the time when the bar was slow, and I started creating programs. I started creating opportunities. And these were things as a therapist I would have never expanded on, because I had found myself in a very comfortable rut within my practice of like what I thought being in private practice looked like, because all of the other women that were in my co-op were doing very similar things. So this helped me to sketch new ideas and like really broaden my idea of how much I could use the skill sets I have in different ways and bring that to new people and then experience new possibilities because of it. When you are in a familiar setting, your nervous system feels safer, right? So again, a part of me staying where I was at and being in this like serving position allowed my nervous system to be so much more calmer that the creativity can come online. Because I'm going to tell you the truth. You are a creative being. We are all very creative. However, we have creative blocks because of how anxious, because of how distracted, because of how overwhelmed, because of how many balls we're juggling at once. Your creative part of you cannot be accessed when you are in this space of constantly doing, being, thinking, acting. And so the stability allowed me to bring online this part of me. I was writing so much at that time, and everything that I was writing was resonating with people. And that's how I started to gain momentum in my therapy, in my coaching business. So I want to remind you, like, I thought, oops, I hit my microphone. I thought that starting over had to look successful. And I thought that I had to prove to everybody that my moving from West Coast to East Coast was something bigger, and that I was successful post divorce. It was like my pride was leading the way. But here is the thing. What I learned from being humbled in that experience was, in all actuality, I had to take some practical steps in order to start getting into that creative space. Creativity in transition looks like three different things to me. Number one, it means being playful instead of pressured. So when you have an opportunity to be creative, your playfulness builds curiosity. Your playfulness builds a sense of ease. Your playfulness is an expanding place. But when you're pressured, when you're forcing something, when you are constantly on edge, all you're doing is holding everything, excuse my language, but like by the balls, gripping it, holding it so tight. And like, where is there any room inside of this? There's no room in this. So even right now, I have a woman that I'm coaching going through a divorce, and she's in her 60s, and we're oftentimes talking about ways to tap into the creative aspects of herself so that she can remember what it's like to find freedom, because playfulness is not restricted. There is so much freedom in that. And having that freedom experienced through playfulness allows your brain to then start to see, oh, wow, this feels good. This feels safe. I can be playful in this area too. Let me see what being playful over here is like. So increasing that playfulness is going to be amazing. Allowing yourself to experiment is the second part of being creative in this transition. I tried so many things, and I feel like I mentioned this in another video. I thought every idea I had was a great idea. 90% of the time, nobody else thought it was a great idea. But I still tried it. And I feel like when we start to experience loss, and when we get into our, like, the late 30s, 40s, even 50s, we start to play it more safe, because now we're of this age where risk does not give us as much reward as it does consequence. But if you don't keep experimenting, not only will you not learn more about yourself, but you're not going to see what opportunities come from it, no matter whether it works or not. The amount of times that I have failed over this 8-9 year process of being divorced is like insane. Like, I have collected more failures than I have successes. However, when I average out my life experience post divorce until now, the successes will always win. They will outnumber, or they will outwin the amount of failures I had, because of how I feel, because of who I've become, and because of where I've gone, and what was either taken away from me because it wasn't for me, or what I grew to develop and understand because of that process. The third one is trying things without it needing to define you. When you can just try stuff, I mentioned this, like, I started doing English horseback riding. I'd never done that before. I went to paint classes. I went to art shows. I took up archery. Like, I bought a crossbow, y'all. I did new things to unlock a new part of me. And we get into this place as we get older, where the routine of familiarity wants to keep us stuck. And then we lose something, we want to hold on to that. But here's what I want to tell you. The moment you let go of everything you know based on where you've been so far, especially when you're experiencing loss or going through transition, you will learn what really defines you, and you will learn what's really important. And so as you get creative, you will start to recognize these new parts of yourself coming online. Again, especially as we get into this middle age part of life, because all of these things, again, like I thought I would be a wife in my 30s, a mom in my 30s. I thought I would have an established career in my 30s. And I didn't get a couple of things until I was 43, 42. And I'm still figuring out the part of my career. If you didn't watch my last episode, I talked a lot about that. So I want to remind you that you are not behind, and that maybe, just maybe, this loss or this transition is making you look at life too seriously. And it's time to let go of some of those reins and start having fun again, and see what that fun and see what that creativity is going to unlock inside of you. The third part of this is rebuilding your identity. And let me tell you, that is some real work, because like I mentioned, I didn't realize how many unhealthy patterns that I had been living and surviving in. I didn't realize how much self-doubt had driven every decision that I had made. I didn't realize how much I didn't know myself back then. I thought that I did, but I really didn't. And so when you are learning and unlearning who you are, that's a whole thing. And I see a lot of women and even men that I work with that go through a divorce or go through a significant change, and they're trying to say, like, I'm just trying to figure out who I am again. Because we rely so much on these titles, and the moment they get stripped, or the moment we have to like change our current lifestyle, it's like we get lost in the shuffle. But that is the real starting over, is the relearning and unlearning who you are. The location, the title, the job, the identity, none of that matters when it's attached to something else. You really have to get to the place where you start to ask yourself, who am I if this business doesn't exist? Who am I if this relationship doesn't exist? Who am I if I am not a parent? Who am I if I'm not a foster dog mom? Who am I if I'm not whatever, fill in the blank. Because when nobody is clapping, when you can still trust yourself, when the titles are gone, who are you? Who are you in the dark corner when nobody is looking? Rebuilding that identity is going to be one of the most significant acts of self-care and self-love that you will give yourself in this process. And it took me way too long to figure out, so I want you to do it sooner than later, okay? It shouldn't take you 8 years. Oh my gosh. Because here's what happened. So when I moved to Charlotte, which was 2 years ago, I found myself in a church. I don't know how I got there, but I landed in a predominantly like 98% Black church. I was like one of 5 white people. And in that same time, I was really starting to feel like I was coming into, how do I want to word this? It was like the 3rd grade Brianna that had been bullied for how she looked and how she dressed, like came back to life and was like resurrected. And I was just finding this amazing cadence with like my closet and my clothes and my style, and how I wanted to dress and how I wanted to show up and how I walked everywhere. And I know part of that is God. But when I started to really build my identity, this younger part of me came out. And like I said, I started getting so creative and playful with my clothing. And that opened up this like excited, more alive, exuberant part of myself. And I started to trust where God was leading me through these experiences. And none of it was to impress anybody. None of it was to make money. None of it was to get clients. It was just me building this identity that had been stuck inside me forever. And these changes, what I just told a client this on Friday, these significant losses and changes will unlock a door to a hidden place inside of us that we didn't know existed, but has always been there, to a part of us that is the most alive. And now it's out and it wants to fully embrace life. And so starting over in your 30s and 40s is less about reinventing, because I truly don't believe I was reinventing myself. It was like I was refining these parts of myself that had both been shut down and had not been exposed yet. I want to encourage you in this part of the process of refinement and really connecting to your identity, is that this isn't a place to hurry. The more that I built relationships in this church and the more that I allowed myself to come online, no matter whether I was at church, the grocery store, I went to the mall, would go out to dinner with friends, I was constantly getting compliments on the way that I dressed. And again, I remember the third grade girl in me coming out who used to get made fun of. And I just felt so excited because I was never getting dressed for the compliments or the attention. I was getting dressed the way that I was getting dressed because like I just felt so alive and I wanted to share that in the way that I was dressing. And doing that led to me leading a group at my church called Keep Me in the Closet. And I had over 75 women sign up. And then leading that group led to 2 speaking engagements to talk about how style is an important piece of showcasing your identity and who you are in your business, and it builds confidence in your customer. None of those things would have happened if I didn't allow myself to be humbled, and I didn't get creative, and I didn't allow for the rebuilding of my identity and the refinement of who I am. And so remember that as you're going through these transitions, none of this is a performance to prove anything. I mentioned at the beginning, you have to be careful that your pride doesn't get in the way of hindering you, stopping you, or overtaking you. Pride will tell you that you're either not doing enough or you have to do more. Humility says, no matter what, I'm going to be the best I can wherever I go. And so being messy in this place is okay, because that's what I was kind of doing, was allowing my unraveled self to come online, and it didn't always look pretty. I mean, even here, I can be messy. About an hour ago, I was on the phone with our contractor because we got this house in December. We're going to be doing some upgrades to it, and some things happened, and I started crying to him. I just started crying to him. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm just like very emotional and a little bit overwhelmed by all this. And I just wish that it was already done. Because if I hide a part of myself, then I'm not being in integrity with who I am, which is always inviting people to be their most vulnerable, honest, authentic selves wherever they go. So there's nothing shameful about this loss that you're in or this transition that you're in. Rebuilding is actually an opportunity to repurpose all the things that you've learned. And that also means the things that don't serve you into something better. There's nothing weak about being humble. And there's nothing that you're doing too late. You are always on time, no matter what. So I just want to thank you so much. And if you are going through a transition, if you are going through a loss, if you are going through a significant change, message below, and let's celebrate this change for you, even if it feels like it's in a negative tone or experience, because I promise you there is going to be good on the other end of it. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Brianna Morse, and I will see you for day 13 tomorrow. Mwah.